Our next panel discussion is co-organized with the EU Parliament Office in Cyprus and the Cyprus Youth Council. 2022 is the European Year of Youth, shining a light on the importance of European youth to build a better future, greener, more inclusive and digital. With plenty of opportunities, youth to learn, share their vision, meet people and engage in activities all over Europe, the European Year of Youth is the moment to move forward with confidence and hope in a post-pandemic perspective. Please welcome Costas Mavrides, member of the European Parliament Group of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, Christiana Xenofontos, European Youth Forum, Kola, President of the Cyprus Youth Council, Data Analyst, Aliye Taygun, International Relations Officer at Oxygono, Ahmet, Aksunlar, Peace Activist. The discussion will be moderated by Thea Pieridou, Press Officer at the European Parliament Office in Cyprus.
Thank you, Melanie, and good morning from me as well. It's a real pleasure for me to be here today, chairing this important panel on the European Year of Youth. And as we all know, 2022 is the European Year of Youth. And in a nutshell, I mean, the aim is to strengthen and enhance the importance of our European youth in order to be able to build a better future, a future which is greener, more inclusive, and of course, digital. So today, we will be discussing the challenges and opportunities that the Cypriot youth are facing within this context. With no further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers. Mr. Costas Mavrides, welcome to today's panel.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Mr. Mavrides is the member of the European Parliament since 2014. He sits with the S&D political group in the European Parliament, S&D meaning the Socialists and Democrats. He is the chairman of the delegation to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean, and he's also participating in several EP committees, the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee, International Trade, Security and Defense Committee, and I will also add that he's also a member of the delegation to the EU-Turkey Joint Parliamentary Committee. Welcome to our panel.
Thanks.
Moving on, Ms. Aliye Taygun, I hope I pronounced it correctly. Ms. Taygun is the International Relations Officer at Oxygono, and she's dealing mainly with enhancing relations between the two communities. And I would like to take this opportunity to quickly thank and congratulate Oxygono for organizing once again this important conference and giving us the opportunity to discuss such important issues. Mr. Ahmet Aksunlar, welcome, European Youth Ambassador, peace activist, and founding member of an initiative called Birlikte Mazi. Welcome. And we have Ms. Christiana Xenofontos with us as well today. Ms. Xenofontos is an elected board member of the European Youth Forum since 2020, and she's actively involved in the topic of youth participation. We have one more speaker, Ms. Kola. She's running a bit late, so we will start our discussion today, and I will welcome her when she joins us a bit later on. And I would like to give the floor first to Mr. Costas Mavrides for some opening comments, thoughts about our topic today, and then I will proceed with the first round of questions. Mr. Mavrides, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thea. As I understood it, I have about no more than 10 minutes. And I will start with an initial statement as to the role of an MEP that I face myself sometimes, being very critical within the European Union. And when I come to Cyprus, I'm very supportive of the EU. And I will try to explain this with reference to the youth. Recently, we had a conference on the future of Europe, where citizens from all the European Union express directly their views as to the future of Europe. There are disappointments, and of course there are many disappointments within the youth themselves, that they have expectations. But I turn it the other way around, and this is a big change that I have noticed the last few years that give me a lot of hope. What do I mean? A few years ago, I would say 15, 20 years ago, not that many people have invested their expectations and their future on EU. Nowadays, more and more citizens, especially youth people, expect and demand from EU to act in certain ways and to affect and rule their everyday life. With that in mind, I go a step further. Today, we live in a global world where challenges need to have global solutions, or at the minimum, multilateral solutions. Therefore, in this global world and challenges, from climate change to international trade, economy, employment, human rights, and so on, democracy, a challenge, especially recently, and the geopolitical instability, especially in our area, but also in the periphery of the EU, all this create an environment where EU has a key role to play. And to summarize this, the role that the EU needs to play, I would emphasize the following. All these employment goals, the digital transformation, the international trade, the employment, the economy, all these goals were very fine. To accomplish them, or the degree to which we are going to accomplish them, we need to secure a geopolitical role for EU. Without stability, security, peace in our neighborhood, not only within Europe, but outside, it's my strong belief that we cannot achieve our other social, greener, inclusive societies. As regards to the youth themselves, I emphasize the fact that the conference was on the future of Europe. For Europe to have future, the young people like you have to believe in it. And the older ones like myself have gone through a lot of part of my life within Europe, and it's about you to take over. And I will give you a personal experience that there are moments where the EU has acted in a very surprisingly nice way, and sometimes, of course, it disappoints us. What is the surprisingly nice way that the EU acted recently? I'm referring to the way that we acted on the social and economic consequences of the pandemic. I was, and still am, a member of the Economic Affairs, as has already been stated by Thea, the Economic Affairs Committee of the EU. And I know the negotiations that we've gone through for 715 billion euros package to be accomplished, to set up rules, and a large portion of that to be allocated not in a loan form, but in a grant form. These are not easy tasks. These are very difficult tasks, considering that we are still 27 sovereign member states, and we need unanimity at many occasions. That was a very nice instance and an example for the future regarding Europe. As far as the youth, I would say a last few things. One, my political group, and I'm very proud of that, the Socialists and Democrats, we have supported all the way from the very beginning the young people doing their stage, their practice, must be awarded monetarily. Second, for decades, and this is a personal belief as well, for decades, as a political group, we have been arguing that we need a framework for a minimum wage across Europe. Recently, as you probably know, all these long-awaited discussions have reached a point where now we have an EU directive, and member states, such as Cyprus, among the very few, without a national minimum wage, now they are obliged to have one. And why I consider this very important? It affects, presumably in a positive way, vulnerable groups, young people, women, and I can go on and on. Of course, again, many people can be very critical and expect much more, but I think this is a coin of two sides. We expect more. At the same time, Europe, it's an evolving process, and hopefully with your involvement and with discussions like this, we can all get more wise and contribute towards this wonderful project called EU. With this, I think that can pass. That would be my first statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mavrides. I'll take the opportunity now to welcome our fourth panelist, Ms. Kola. Ms. Kola is the president of the Cyprus Youth Councils from the beginning of this year, and she's strongly involved in promoting active citizenship to young people across Cyprus and at all levels. So welcome to our panel. We had to start so as to keep with the time. And now I would like to pass on to our first round of questions, and I will start then with Ms. Kola, if you don't mind. We'll go this way. And we'll have a first round of questions. Feel free to say some thoughts, your opinion on the European Year of Youth, on our topics, on some issues that Mr. Mavrides perhaps had just touched upon. And of course, if you have any specific questions that you would like to address to Mr. Mavrides, please feel free to raise them, and then we will have time to get some answers from Mr. Mavrides. So, Ms. Kola, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Good morning to everybody, to those here and to those online. So I will get to the point and cut the chase. So the last thing that you've mentioned is about the unpaid internships and about the minimum wage at the European level and also at national level due to the last updates that we got on the minimum wage. And I would like to address a question on unpaid internships, basically. Starting with the decision of the European Committee of Social Rights determined that gaps in Belgium's legislation allow young people to be exploited as free labor through unpaid internships. It was a case that basically the European Youth Forum took to the court, the Belgian government, because due to the national law of Belgium for the unpaid internships. The European Youth Forum basically won the court case, and now we're trying to ban the unpaid internship across EU countries. What I wanted to ask is that, just to give also a bit of more background, is that the European Parliament voted in favor of a resolution which calls for ban on the unpaid internships. The discussion has already started in our national parliament as well, as an initiative that started by the project of Youth Parliament Cyprus, which is a collaborative project of Cyprus Youth Council and its member organization, Cyprus Youth Diplomacy. Basically, we are now at the phase that the consultation started with all the relevant actors to change this Cyprus legislation to act on this. The question is, how will the European Parliament ensure that policies will be created in member states regarding the unpaid internships, and how you will work with the European Youth Forum as our representative body at the European level, and also including other EU institutions, to achieve the best possible result in all member states of the European Union.
Thank you. Christiana?
Hello, also from my side. Before I begin, I would like to thank also the organizers for today's event and for 2 days full of open dialogue and discussion. Mr. Mavrides, as we have already mentioned, this is the European Year of Youth, and one of the most important topics that we tried to raise so far, it was also, and it is still, the youth participation. And when we are referring to youth participation, we are not just meaning the election process or the voting process or even the consultation process that majority of the policymakers are deciding to have with young people, but we are meaning a throughout participation of young people throughout the policymaking, from the beginning until the very end that a policymaking decision has been done. And as young people, we lack the feeling of this co-ownership, of the co-ownership of the policies, and that has a reflection also on our participation, on how active we choose to be on a political level. And talking about that as well, it is incredible that the average age of parliamentarians in Europe today is 50, the age of 50, with only 5% of the parliaments being aged under 30. And then we expect, of course, young people to feel represented, which is a bit strange. This being said, I would like to ask you in which ways you, as an MEP, you can ensure that the upcoming European elections, we will have the participation of young people, but we will ensure also to have young candidates as well, and young women, which is much needed nowadays.
Very nice, thank you. Ahmet, the floor is yours.
First of all, it's such an honor for an MVP to listen to youth and being here. And with that being said, as you're also aware, on the 26th of September, all the member states of the European Union celebrated the European Day of Languages. As we're talking about the struggles and the opportunities for the youth in Cyprus, what are your views on the Turkish language not becoming a not European language? Why are we taking the Turkish Cypriot youth out of the equation in the EU? One of the EU's founding principles is multilingualism, which aims communicating with its citizens in their own language. However, as a Turkish Cypriot youth, I do not have a privilege to do that, even though I'm as much as European as you are. So my question is, what is your opinion about this issue? And at the same time, what are your actions towards this solution?
Okay, thank you, Ahmet. And last but not least, Aliye, please as well join us in this debate and tell us what your thoughts are.
I would like to say that I'm very glad to be here with you this morning. As a young working professional in Cyprus, I encounter challenges, but also most of the time can be lucky enough to seize many opportunities in different areas of my work. Moreover, taking part in such a job also provides me with an occasion of networking, which I deeply appreciate. On the other hand, there are still many young educated women who suffer from the lack of access to similar opportunities, and yet their voices and opinions cannot be heard. This being said, it is therefore crucial to make an effort to raise awareness on this matter and provide women with more equal rights to employment across the island. Therefore, Mr. Mavrides, I would like to have your opinions on what actions can be taken to strengthen women's empowerment in Cyprus. Thank you.
Very nice. So we have various questions on the table. Mr. Mavrides, we touched upon unpaid internships, ensuring youth participation throughout the policy-making cycle, and how we can ensure that youth will participate in the upcoming European elections 2024, and that we will also have young candidates standing up in these elections, and women candidates, very important for Cyprus, which is the only country, if I'm not mistaken, that does not have a female MEP. We had the Turkish language not being an official EU language, and Aliye's question about women's empowerment and what can we do to strengthen women in that domain. So, floor is yours.
Okay.
Thank you.
Listening to your questions, I can reassure you once again that there can be no stupid questions, but there might be stupid answers. Therefore, I would try not to expand so much on matters which I don't consider myself an expert, but I would try to give you my view based on my experience and know-how. Let's go step by step. Regarding the apprenticeship of the stagiaire, I can reassure you that there are, on one point, legal matters which need to be resolved, but it is my personal and also my political group view that as an EU institution, the European Parliament must be the exemplary for all other employers, not only in terms of wages, but also in terms of employment. And I do know there are, in the European Parliament, incidents many times which do not make us very proud of it, but at the same time, we are learning from our experiences and we are improving and trying to use that, again, repeating myself, as an exemplary employment for the rest of society. Regarding the upcoming European elections and the involvement of youth, that's a very good issue, and perhaps is not just a Cyprus issue. In a way, it's at least partially a problem in other member states as well. But you will see how frank I'm going to be with you. I would dare to say the following. Within European societies, there is a growing anger, or I would say a growing disappointment, that our democracies are not as free as they appear, but sometimes are being captured by special interest groups. And I would say a few, for example, the banking sector or some others. And it is a great task for people, especially like myself in the Economic Affairs Committee, to fight and prove that we are trying to find a balance between economic interests, entrepreneurship, development, and employment, and at the same time, social inclusion and social rights. I could testify that this is not an easy job, but it is, at least, a core belief of my socialist and democratic background. Specifically regarding Cyprus, suffice to say the following. Those who communicate with me through Facebook many times, especially youngsters, I take the opportunity to urge them to get more involved into politics and especially to participate even with their own candidacy. And to the extent that I can help, I'm going to be next to them. Sometimes I may even make a joke. I say that if I ever get retired from politics, then I could be hired as a consultant to some of the youngsters. Now, regarding the Turkish language, all I know about this issue is that a few years ago, it was proposed by the President of Cyprus, and the response of the then President of the European Commission was that this is a matter up to be decided by the Council. And at the time, there was no positive response by the Council. I don't know much out of that, and certainly, procedure-wise, is not an easy way out. Of course, I acknowledge that there are matters of politics as well. With that in mind, I would say this. Recently, I gave an interview to a Turkish Cypriot media, and I supported, especially to find ways for the Turkish Cypriot community to be included in the EU common roof, because indeed, I share your view that you are no less or no more a European citizen than everyone else. And what I mean, in that interview, what I had documented was the fact that the euro can be an economic way of serving the interests of both communities and the European Union itself as well. Women's empowerment. I know that the European Union is trying hard to promote this issue, and I will give you two examples. One is the Board of Directors mandate by the EU, so that, I don't remember the numbers now, but by 2024 or 2026, it depending on the threshold, but the Board of Directors in executive and non-executive members must, at the minimum, include a certain percentage of women. Would that change the social environment? I think not. However, it is also a view that women themselves are gaining power, and this is the feeling that I have. And I will give you an example recently where even myself, I was criticized by a portion of the Cyprus society. Some women officers in the National Guard were discriminated against for being women. I didn't get involved into the issue itself, but I supported their right at the European level, just like I would support the right of every group vulnerable and discriminated against. Unfortunately, as we speak of now, even though it is an obligatory EU directive for the elimination of such discrimination based on against women, still, even in Cyprus, we say much more in public than we do in practice. But again, it is a way forward, and I see steps forward as well. Let's not get disappointed. It is a struggle, a social struggle takes years and decades, and I think that women deserve much better than what they have so far.
Very nice. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you, Mr. Mavrides. So now we'll go on to the second round of questions, and I will go the other way, and I will start with Aliye. Aliye, please feel free again to voice any thoughts or concerns you may have about our topic and any specific questions addressed to Mr. Mavrides. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mavrides, I strongly believe that when youth is united and together, much can be done and achieved. One of its examples touches upon the topic of environment. In the year of 2022, we unfortunately experienced many fires all around the island. Every time, many youth organizations were more than ready and willing to cooperate and contribute. In terms of the fundraising, even though those cooperating organizations haven't had a lot of budgets, they managed to fundraise a very good amount of monies. So, this being mentioned, I would like to hear your opinions on what can be done and how these youth organizations can be supported more to fundraise in case of urgent need. Thank you.
Thank you. Ahmet, the floor is yours.
Firstly, thank you for your answer for my first question. And my second question is, with 2022 being the European Year of Youth, we noticed that many private and public institutions amplified the youth's voice and encouraged youth participations in societies. Not only that, we also saw politicians, either local or from the EU body, approach the youth and welcome them as warmly as possible, which we have never seen it before. My question is, how can this become a standard practice and a priority of such people instead of a mere trend?
Sorry, instead of?
Mere trend.
Mere trend, yeah. Okay, thank you, Ahmed. Christiana?
Yeah, my second question will be a follow-up on the first one. So I will stick into the youth participation because as young people, we're affected in the long term by the policies and the choices that our leaders make today. And we have the longest to live also with the consequences of the decisions made in the past and today, and we are affected also in the present. So it is crucial to listen, to value voices and to our experiences, and this is why as a European Youth Forum, since the beginning of this year and since the beginning of the Conference on the Future of Europe as well, we called together with our members for the legacy of this year to be the introduction of an EU youth test. And if an EU youth test would be assessed for its impact, every new law, let's say, and policy would be assessed and we will know what impact will have also on young people. For example, if the assessment shows that there is a potential impact on young people, there should be a consultation with young people and young experts in the field and also with youth organizations. And in other words, when a new legislation is being proposed, around entrepreneurship, for example, it would be compulsory to consult also with young people. And if a negative impact on a certain group of young people is identified through the impact assessment tool or the consultation, then appropriate mitigation measures should be put in place before the new law or policy is launched. And creating a youth test with these 3 simple steps would ensure also a concrete follow-up to the Conference on the Future of Europe and constitute a real legacy for the European Year of Youth. And it will also follow up of what we've heard the previous weeks from the President of the European Commission regarding the ensurement that the future generations are at the heart of the EU decision-making process. And I would like to hear your thoughts, Mr. Mavrides, regarding this EU youth test, and if you are in favor of it, or if you think such a tool will help us and improve us also in
favor
of the EU youth test, of this assessment tool, if you are in favor of it, and if you think that it will have a real impact into having policies that will be created from young people with young people.
Okay, thank you. And Maria?
So many questions and so many answers that somebody could comment on. But I will bring to the table something that it is there, it is more or less the elephant in the room, and nobody used to speak about it, but now almost everybody talks for it. The elephant in the room, especially after the pandemic, is the mental health issues, and how everything, including the pandemic, basically affected the youth. Not only in Cyprus, but also at every country around the world, and not just the EU member states. Basically, after having a national barometer data coming out from the Youth Board of Cyprus, we have identified that indeed many youngsters, they do have and they do face issues on mental health. It is the unspoken cloud, the unspoken, I don't know, identified enemy, let's say, but it is there. At the European level, we see many campaigns happening about raising awareness, about destigmatizing this, but what is going on at national level? Especially that after we got the data that we indeed have issues, we can see that many of the helplines that used to be on board with this, they stopped working, basically. So the youth, we don't have anymore this help that used to be provided to us freely. We have seen the country and the government putting some tools, let's say, very small steps forward, especially during the pandemic, but it was just targeting specific communities, not communities, but specific citizens groups, such as people who work in relation to health and people who got sick with COVID. But what is going on after that? And what will happen with young people having been unemployed, having got COVID, having all these issues that they have to face during their everyday lives, also studying, either online or face-to-face, and also the uncertainty, and also the pressure that it is put on them by the society of being more active, of being participatory, and do whatever they can in order to succeed, either for their goals or what the society expects them to do. And this goes not only to women, but basically every human being, and especially on young people. And just with this opportunity, and before giving the right to Mr. Mavrides' answer to all of our questions, I would like to second what Christiana mentioned earlier about the EU youth test, and it will be lovely to hear your opinion of how this could help also the national level and legislation.
Very interesting and impressive questions. Thank you all for your enthusiasm in this panel. And I think the mental health aspect that you touched upon, Maria, it's a huge challenge. It affects us all, of course, the youth, the women, but generally the society. And I'm very looking forward to hearing Mr. Mavrides on this issue, as long as all the other questions.
Yeah.
And if I may just add, sorry, that Mr. Mavrides, Christiana, you spoke about the Conference on the Future of Europe. Just to say that Mr. Mavrides was a member of the plenary deliberations of the Conference on the Future of Europe, so he was really strongly involved in all the discussions that took place in the conference. Thank you. Please, Mr. Mavrides.
Okay. By all means, I would say that all four issues that you raised are very important. And in fact, had we been somewhere else, I could have been in your place arguing for what you have argued. Having said that, though, I will bring an issue just to understand politically how a member of the European Parliament, or even the European Parliament itself, can go. The health and the other issues, to a larger or less degree, are, strictly speaking, are competences of the member states. And the European Union, through its own institutions, especially through the European Parliament, we are trying hard to raise the issue that it's always better through a unified European response to manage these issues. And the best recent example, of course, was the management of the pandemic. Have we done wrong and mistakes? Yes. Have we acted and reacted in a delayed way? Yes, we all remember. But finally, we got our act together and we acted as Europeans through a European response. And I'm very confident that no member state would be better off if acted on its own regarding the pandemic. Many times, even myself, when we discuss these issues when we form directives or even regulations, we face the following dilemma. When we try to form a size that will fit it all, then more member states act in a negative way and they reject it. If we have a loose way for everyone to fit in, then we tend to be non-effective. So it is indeed, to my understanding, a burden of responsibility, many times on the governments of member states, to take the framework, the sources being provided, the know-how by the EU, and act on their own in a responsible way towards serving the social interests of the people. And I will give you a good example regarding Cyprus, that regards especially the youngsters and the students. In the Reform and Recovery, in the Recovery and Resilience Framework facility, there was, at the European level, a strong fight so that social housing was included as one whole section for member states to be allocated resources through this facility. Portugal got more than 5 billion. Spain, more than 1 billion. Do you know how much money did Cyprus ask for? Not even a single euro. This is, the way I state this is just to make it so obvious that perhaps sometimes it's not just we should expect from Europe to act, but also it is the initiative of their own member states to act as well. And a final word. I would love to keep in contact and for you to send me all these 4 issues. And by the way, yes, I'm in favor. That's a wonderful idea. I think that these are issues on which we can build on. And I expect that I will see you again in the upcoming European elections, and hopefully we can build on your own future for a better Europe and better Cyprus as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We've reached the end of this panel discussion. I would like to thank once again our 4 panelists and of course Mr. Mavrides as our keynote speaker, and thank all of you for being here with us today and listening to our thoughts and concerns. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting conversation and questions put forward. Thank you.